Hey guys, this is Sharad with Recently. Super excited to bring you another fantastic guest on Recently podcast. Today we have Jeremy Resmer joining us from Nashville, but he's doing real estate business in South Carolina. Welcome, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for being on the podcast. Really appreciate that. Yeah, before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself. You live in Nashville, investing in South Carolina, but tell us, how did you get started and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I'm in Nashville. I actually got started. I listened to a Bigger Pockets podcast and I heard Tom Kroll from
Okay.
Wholesaling Inc.
Yeah.
And at the time, I wasn't investing, but I was looking at trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what type of investing I wanted to get involved in. And so I was at a point where I had some life changes going on and I really needed to kind of pivot. And it felt like a good time. And I heard him ringing the bell and all of his energy. And so I checked him out and I was like, man, this is a guy that, I want what he has. So I quickly talked with my wife and told her what I wanted to do and felt like this was a good decision. And within 24 hours, I bought his course and just was committed to taking massive action. So that's
That's
how it all got started. That was back in 2016 in June.
okay. Well, so it's been about like 7 years since you kind of thought about doing what has that looked like over the last, 6 or 7 years since you decided you wanted to do investing? A lot of people buy a course. Like, what were the next steps for you?
Yeah, so, kind of a crazy story because I got two contracts really quickly and I thought, oh man, I'm going to make so much money. I'm going to be rich, right? What happened was I made the commitment that I needed to, for my personal health and for my marriage. My wife and I were really going through some hard times. I needed to make a change. So I literally burned the ships. I left my job and, had a little bit of income or a little bit of savings. But my wife, got behind me. And so I dumped it all into this, new venture and had two deals under contract, had buyers. Both of them were $30,000 assignment fees. And I was just so excited. And lo and behold, title comes back and there were so many problems with both of these files. Neither of them could be closed. In
Oh,
fact,
wow.
both of the owners ended up losing the property because there was
Title
nothing
issue.
that could actually be done. And so I'm jumping in. I'm all excited. I don't know how this is supposed to go, right? And so, all I was doing was direct mail at the time. And I'm hearing people start talking about, well, you got to get a website and pay per click and SEO. And so I just jumped all in and signed a 12-month contract for $2,300 SEO, thinking, I'm looking long term. I'm going to make this work. This is going to be great. And then both of those deals I couldn't get closed. And as you know, SEO is not a short term proposition. It takes
Right.
time. And so I had a brand new site, and those guys were going to work, but I didn't really know the difference at the time between SEO and PPC. And so that scared the heck out of me. Now I've just committed myself to this big expenditure every month. And so, basically at that point, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And the only thing I could think of was I just got to keep going. And so
Right.
I actually found my first deal on Craigslist, believe it or not. And the seller told me, hey, I had 5 or 6 people that couldn't get this deal done. Is there a way we can make it work? And so it was wild. I made every mistake in the book. I didn't assign it. I had to end up buying it. I bought it in it was a historical property. So that brought all these other challenges. And so long story short, I made $14,000 after a very minor, probably $3,000 light renovation just to fix a few things up. But I was hooked. I'm like, man, if I can make every mistake in the book and still make money, I'm going to keep going.
So that was a flip then or wholesale deal, what you would call
Yeah,
now?
so at the time when I put under contract, I thought, oh, this is going to be an assignment, but I ended up having to close on it, used hard money, signed my life away right away, had no idea what I was doing, and then got a contractor to come in and we just fixed some of the basics. Our plan was actually to do a bigger flip, and I had a
Okay.
realtor who calls me up and says, just so you know, this is a historical property. Were you aware of that? I'm like, no, I didn't know. What does that mean? And she kind of
Wow.
gave me a little bit of education, but then she said, okay, you need to call the historical society. It was right in downtown Nashville, right
Right.
next to one of the stadiums, literally a quarter mile away. And so they're like, yeah, well, you have to use these paint colors. You can't change the footprint. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Well, that screws up my plan. And
Right.
so at that point, I'm like, all right, I'm already in this thing. So let's just salvage it, figure out what we can do. And, we had to make, just some really minor fixes. And again, everything went wrong. We had a realtor that came in with a buyer, and then, everything kind of fell apart at the last minute. And then eventually we had to reduce our price. But again, I made $14,000, and I'm like, shoot, if this works, like, I just need to figure out how to get better at it. So
that is amazing. Even after making all the mistakes, buying a property in historical district and not even knowing kind of all the things that you have to go through to renovate, still made 14,000. Congratulations on that, man. That's fantastic. So what happened after that? You made 14,000 and you have this contract paying 2,300 a month for SEO, correct?
Yep.
So for 12-month contract. So what happens after that?
So I didn't end up generating really many leads. Probably month 8, I started to see a couple of leads. I never had a deal off of it. Basically, what I did is I just kind of doubled down on direct mail. I said, hey, well, this other thing over here, if I'm going to be in this long term, this will be good to kind of build my brand and my online presence. But again, I didn't really realize, I wish I knew at the time, that PPC would have been a better option, right? Because I was limited in funds, that would have generated leads quickly. But, you live and you learn. So I just really doubled down on direct mail. And to be honest with you, I was pretty terrible at wholesaling properties starting out. I just didn't really negotiate well. I didn't really have my costs dialed in. And so I was overpaying for properties. And so I started flipping instead of wholesaling, which is not how I planned to get started. So it probably took me about 2 years before I actually really made any money and started to figure out, oh, shoot, I actually have to get my cost dialed in. Managed several of these flips, started to actually learn what the real costs were and where I needed to be. And then once, call it, I don't know, 2 years, around that time frame, I started to, I've added pay-per-click and started to see, okay, these are more motivated leads, started to get some SEO leads. I actually ended up hiring another company. So I had 3 channels going, and the SEO and the PPC leads, when those came in, I was just at a little bit more, I don't know, I guess I was more experienced at the time. So I was able to kind of dial in that wholesaling process. I kept seeing everybody else doing it and figuring it out. And so I realized, hey, I just needed to offer less. And so I started to wholesale a few properties. I'd make 10,000 here, 20,000 there. And then I by accident fell into a couple of land deals. And I'm like, man, can I make some money off of this? And so I actually started to get into land investing and found one of my best deals ever was a 5-acre parcel of property that had 2 mobile homes on it. The owner had to evict 19 people who moved into it and literally destroyed the whole thing. So I get in there, I buy it, I think for like $25,000. And I ended up making about $60,000. Didn't do anything. I was going to move the mobile homes, was going to go ahead and put a new one on there. I talked to an agent. The agent says, nope, this is a great piece of property. It's 5 acres. You had 2 homes here. I'll get this thing sold in 30 days or less. And sure enough, she did. So then I started to get a little bit into buying land. And so I was buying cheap pieces of land for 5, 10, 15,000, basically tripling my money. And so then it was kind of weird because it happened at the same time, right? I was getting really sick of flipping, but I was getting better at it. And then all of a sudden I was getting better at wholesaling, understanding the cost, knowing where I need to come in, building a buyer's list. And then also I started dabbling in land. And so my business took a little bit of a different path, but I actually started making money because I got a little bit more proficient in each of those. So it got really exciting for me because I'm like, holy crap, now I know this works. Now I'm getting better at what I'm doing. But I just had a lot going on and I felt overwhelmed and I had young kids. And so I'm like, okay, there's got to be a better way. Now that I can make a little bit of money, how can I actually build a team and start to generate a little bit of a life for myself?
Got it. So what are you doing now in like 2024? Like what did you do? How many deals did you do last year, if you don't mind sharing? And what were they? What kind of deals were they?
Yeah, so 2023, we did 93 deals. My goal for the year was 100. Actually, I was hoping let's hit 100, but my big goal was 110. Well, we came a little bit short. We did over 2 million in total revenue between our assignments and flips, which was great, which is our biggest year ever. I'm doing a little bit in the Nashville area, a little bit of wholesaling, and then in South Carolina, I do some buy and holds, some flipping, and primarily wholesaling. And then, believe it or not, a couple of years ago, I got involved in buying apartment buildings. And so,
Okay.
my business has kind of gone a few different directions, but we've had an 8-unit, a 19-unit, a 30-unit. And so, we like to pick some of those up as well. It's kind of diverse, but right now our bread and butter is still the wholesaling. That's been really, really effective for us.
Like single family or residential 1 to 4 units.
Yep. That's our bread and butter.
What marketing channels do you have you been? So when you started, like a couple of years after you kind of started, you were doing direct mail, SEO, PPC. What does that look like now?
Yeah, so we actually made a switch in 2020. I needed to kind of figure out how I can get out of my own way because I was managing flips, going on appointments, dealing with the CRM, getting the marketing. I was doing all of it. And I got to a point where I was heading for burnout. And I started to do a little bit of research and kept seeing people that were building teams and growing their business and starting to get a little bit of their time back. And so for me, had 3 kids at the time, 3 young kids. And, I was leaving before they were waking up. And then, by the time I'd get home, I maybe had an hour with them, put them to bed, I work and, repeat that cycle. So I was really intent on figuring out how I can do this in such a way where I could get a little bit of my time back. And so I decided that, my parents retired to South Carolina. And so I did some research there and I thought, you know what, it looks like a fragmented market. I think I might be able to be successful. I've been going down to South Carolina since I was a kid. I knew a little bit about it, knew some of the areas and just felt like I could be successful. Plus it would give me an excuse to go visit my parents. So basically I had another wholesaler who I reached out to and said, hey man, I'm looking for properties. I'm looking for rentals. I'm just trying to get into this market. And so I bought a house basically sight unseen and got introduced to a contractor who did the work on that first rental property, bird it, had a lot of success on that first one, and realized, hey, this contractor he would make I think a great acquisitions guy. And so, over the course of a couple of months, was able to bring him on to do acquisitions, train him in that. He already knew the numbers, right? Because his construction background was really conducive to this business. And then today he's now my partner. So when we started in 2020, we just said, hey, let's do one channel. I was really focused on trying to train him, right? Get the sales process down, try to build the systems or introduce him to the systems and how, we can buy properties and dispo those properties. And so we really were pretty slow in adding marketing channels. And so back then, the first channel we actually did was I created a website. So I said, hey, let's just do some really, really simple SEO and just kind of get that going, knowing that, again, it was a long-term proposition, but I wasn't going to make the same mistake I made last time. I had a company who had done some work for me in Nashville and said, hey, we'll give you a wholesale rate. We want to prove to you that we can take your website from 0 to generating leads. So I said, okay, let's do that. So I was able to do that for $600 a month. And actually within 3 months, they started generating some SEO leads. Then we were able to, do a little bit of cold calling, tried that out for about 90 days. It just wasn't as effective as I hoped it would be. And so we made a little bit of pivot to direct mail and then PPC. So call it day 90 to 180, the first, 3 to 6 months, we were able to add 3 marketing channels. Direct mail was generating a lot of calls, a lot of appointments. And so once we got the processes down and we realized, hey, we can get these properties under contract where we need to, then we started ramping up the marketing. So from there, we just kept adding. My goal was to create an inbound lead ecosystem. So I wanted to make my acquisition guy the main face in that market. So if you think of selling your house fast in Myrtle Beach, you're calling Myrtle Beach home buyers. So, we kept adding one after the next. And basically where we're at today is we do SEO, direct mail, PPC, Facebook, radio, TV. And then we've recently about, call it 18, 19 months ago, we started dabbling with connected TV and have just really grown our business, grown our brand, and those have been really, really effective for us.
So what's connected TV, like TV ads?
We started doing TV ads and that was really good for us. So the first year we did, I think 25 deals. And then in year 2, we were at 48. So then in year 3, we added in year 2, we added TV and that helped our growth. In year 3, so that was 2022, I had a friend that called me up and said, hey man, I've got this project that I'm working on. You might be interested. And so he told me about what connected TV was. I really wasn't sure. I'd never heard of it. And he said, hey man, we're delivering TV ads to people that are streaming. And so I started asking him some questions. And I'm like, well, can you target these people? Can you deliver ads to specific lists, right? And so he said, hey, let me show you what this is capable of. And so I started talking with him and his partner, and I said, hey, this could be really, really effective in the house business. I said, man, there's a lot of investors who are always pulling lists. They're skip tracing, they're cold calling, they're doing all these things. If you're telling me, because I had already done TV, right? TV was effective for me. You could only get so targeted with TV. But with connected TV, what we found was we could actually target specific lists of people, right? So if someone's in pre-foreclosure, we could actually say, deliver an ad to these 50 people who are in pre-foreclosure and deliver that ad across all these different streaming devices, right? The glass TV, which is in your living room, and then also on your mobile devices. And so now we were following them basically everywhere. Once they identified that device, got their IP address, now we're delivering TV ads to them across different devices. And so we could actually say, hey, a pre-foreclosure lead is much more valuable than, let's say, a high equity lead, right? So we created different ad groups to now focus, and we could say, hey, hit these people 30 times in a week. So that we found another way into their living room, because these people might be ready to lose their house, or they might be in the process of losing their house, but they're still on Facebook. They're still watching TV. They're still looking at Hulu and all these other, streaming platforms. And so if we have access to them, now it's another way for them to see who we are and how we can help them. So that was a huge game changer for our business, because we went from 48 deals to 86. The only thing we changed for a whole year was we added connected TV, and that helped our conversions across all the different marketing channels. So that has been really a game changer for our business, and it's been really effective for us.
That's amazing, man. Congratulations on all the success. When you look back at all the marketing channels that you're doing, which one is generating the most deals for you? Is it the connected TV that's getting you the most deals, or is it direct mail, SEO, PPC?
Direct mail is still performing really, really well for us. Direct mail in 2022 and 2023 generated the most number of deals. Okay. The highest margin deals actually are coming from SEO. So our SEO is pretty dialed in. We're almost at 40,000 a rip on assignment fees for SEO. So we really love those. Those have been really great. Inherited and probate leads have been outstanding for us. And then TV still strong for us, still generates a lot of leads. Connected TV is great, because what we're using that for is, if someone comes to our website and, let's say it's an SEO lead, or let's say it's a radio lead, they come to the site. But once they come to the site, we have a tracking pixel. So now we're following them around, and we're delivering 30-second ads when they're streaming, right? So they all work together. Where we've changed over the last couple of years is, early on, when we only had a couple of marketing channels, it was a lot easier to track where people came from, right? Because they called a specific number, or, direct mail. We didn't even put our website on. They called that number, so we knew exactly where they were coming from. But when you're running radio, TV, connected TV, all of these things, all of those all of those channels drive search, right? So people come to your website. Well, is it SEO, or is it coming from Facebook? Is it coming from radio, TV, connected TV? And so we really had to just ask the question, how did you find us? And the interesting thing was, people were like, well, I hear your radio ads. And I thought, man, I should really call you. And then I saw you on TV. And then, man, I was looking at a YouTube video, and then I saw you guys come up that way too. And so I just finally decided to give you a call. So the question I always ask is, what lead is that, right? Is that an SEO lead? Is that a TV lead, a radio lead? And so for me and our company, we stopped focusing specifically on getting perfect attribution of where the lead's coming from. And now we have, we're focusing on return on total ad spend. So that's really important for us.
But how do you attribute that? Let's say if someone saw your streaming ad on YouTube, right? Then they hear you on radio, but then they actually go and research you guys on Google, and then they become a lead. But you know that they actually first heard about you through the streaming app. How do you attribute that lead?
So that's really tricky because it's hard for us to really know if they first came through any of those channels, right?
Right.
So what we typically do is wherever they come from in our system. So if they fill out a form on our website, then we just categorize that as SEO. However, if we, have a conversation with them and they say, "Hey, how did you hear about us?" "Oh, I heard you on the radio." Then we make that adjustment, and that's how we attribute it.
Okay.
But it's so hard. It's so hard. And, some people would say, "Hey, man, what I'm about to say is, they wouldn't agree with." But I look at it and say, I don't necessarily care how you heard about me. I know that all of the channels that we're running are working together. And so SEO is working in tandem with my CTV,
TV,
right? Because
yeah.
now we're retargeting them and they're seeing the ad. And then once they see the ad, maybe they don't call the CTV phone number. Maybe now they go online and search. Now they click on our PPC ad, right? The branded one. They get confused. This happens all the time. They're like, "Oh, are you, we just, we're interested in selling our house," and we have to really delve. And sometimes we don't even find out until later on, or we don't find out at all exactly where they come from. So what I would say is that they're all working together. And if we know what our return on ad spend is, and those numbers are where they should be for us, we want to be somewhere between 6 and 9. If we're there, then we're healthy. If we're less than that, then we're starting to really dive in. Hey, what's going on? Is something not running? Is something not running correctly? And then we start diving in. But typically, if we're over 6, we're healthy.
But is that on average across all your marketing channels, or each individual should be at 6 to 9?
That's all channels.
Okay. Yeah, because you could have hundreds of people, thousands of people watch your connected TV ads, but then they all come from your website. So that doesn't mean the connected TV ads is not working. It just, you're looking at that in total because you cannot specifically attribute that lead to connected TV. But if you were not doing connected TV, they would never find out about you to begin with.
Correct. But the one thing to that is on our connected TV reporting, we actually can see how many people filled out forms. So now we can actually start attributing how many of those came. So we can actually we can backfill, and we can do some research each month to go see, hey, this deal came from SEO, or it says it came from SEO. They filled out a form. Now we go and we look at it on the back end to see, hey, where did they really come from? And now we start looking into our ad groups, right? Is our retargeting ad group working well? Is our foreclosure ad group? Because they're all built a little bit differently based on the level of intent, right? So if we get a PPC lead, that person's getting retargeted, right? Because the pixel goes into that landing page, and now we're retargeting them. If we get a PPL lead, right? We've got some really good PPL services out there, and those leads come in, and we're now saying, okay, let's go and identify this person, and let's put them, let's retarget them. So we're basically anyone that comes into our funnel, we're saying, okay, let's go retarget everybody. And so if somebody comes from PPL, we actually can put them into, we can upload that list, and we put them into an ad group that has higher frequency. We are able to say, hey, we're willing to spend more money on these individuals or these records because they've already shown intent, right? They've already maybe gone to our website, or they've already come through this other lead channel. So it's really fascinating, but we're constantly tweaking to see how to build this out, how to identify those individuals who are the most motivated, and then follow them everywhere they go. So that's really how we build that out, so that our online and online are working together.
So if someone comes through PPL, you have their name, phone number, email, correct? How do you retarget them online?
So we are able to upload into our system. And by uploading them, basically we've got a 70 to 85% or so match rate. And so again, if you just try to match the mail address, you're going to be a little bit less. But if you already have skip traced, you have the phone number and email, now the match rate is going to be higher. So the way our system works is once we're actually able to get the IP address for the TV in the house, like I said, the glass TV on the wall, now we're able to identify all the other IP addresses in the house on mobile devices, iPads, phones, and all of that. And so we can follow people around wherever they're going. And so, that's how we're building out, that's how we're building out our different campaigns. We're prioritizing certain records that we feel are more, have a higher level of motivation. So that's how we're able to match them.
That's crazy, man. It's incredible everything that you can do with technology, just from IP address and stuff. Like this is definitely more advanced level stuff. But someone who's just starting out, let's say if you were to go back to 7 years ago when you first started, right? Knowing everything that you know now, what would you tell, Jeremy from 7 years ago as a new investor? What should they do?
I think lead gen is a huge. I look at our business now and I say, if you have no leads, you have no business, right? Because if you can't generate leads, especially motivated leads, then you can't go on appointments or have those phone calls and make the offers. So it starts with lead gen. So that's a huge piece. And then the lesson I learned was I started spending more money, but I didn't have systems. And so not having a proper CRM, I wasn't able to follow up the right way. And then even when I did get my first CRM, I didn't realize the power of automated follow-up. That was a game changer for our business because once we implemented a specific follow-up sequence for every lead type, essentially nobody got left behind because no matter how good I thought I was, because at the time I was on the phones and I was following up and I wasn't good, but I thought I was, right? We all think we're better than we are. And so I'm like, oh, I've got this covered. Well, I didn't have it covered. And then our acquisition manager was missing things left and right, not following up with people. Oh, shoot, I'll get around to it. He was doing all these other things, bopping around, didn't have time to get on his phone. So once we added the automated follow-up, that's where our business went from 25 deals to 48 in year 2. And that was a huge piece because I don't think we really spent significantly more. We didn't spend significantly more that year. But what we did is we honed in that automated piece where people were now getting followed up with a text message. They were getting the RVMs, and all of a sudden the people are calling back in, hey, yeah, something changed. Well, we weren't reaching them, but now we didn't have to actually get on the horn and make those dials. They were coming back to us and now re-engaging, and we're like, oh shoot, yeah, I remember this house. Yeah, we got all the notes here in our system. Where are you at now? And all of a sudden, hey, they're ready to move on something where before they want to retail. Now they're like, hey, we tried to list it with an agent. It didn't move. Now we're ready to listen to what you guys have to say. And that happened time and time again. And so 80% of our deals, even to this day, come from follow-up. So I would say you got to spend money on the marketing and figure out what works for you. Take one channel, figure it out. And then when you're ready, move on to the next channel. Invest as quickly as you can become profitable to get to the next channel. And then you got to invest in your CRM. You got to invest in systems and processes because, like it or not, people say fortune's in the follow-up, but most people still don't follow up. And if they do, it's sporadic. And so your system, your CRM is your best friend. It really, it is, and really makes a huge
100%,
difference.
100% agree. I mean, it's an overused cliche that money's in the follow-up, but it is so true. I mean, people leave so much money on the table just not by following up. Their hope is that the first person that calls them from their direct mail is just ready to sell. That's going to happen sometimes where you get a call from a seller. You just happen to reach them at the right time. They were in whatever situation they were going through, and then this is the perfect property for you. But 99% of your deals are going to come from automated follow-up or some sort of a follow-up. But for a newbie investor that's starting out, if you had to advise them on one marketing channel, which one would you say? You've used multiple, or you're using multiple marketing channels. If you had to pick one, which one would you pick for someone starting out?
I would go direct mail all day, every day.
Right. Absolutely. And any particular list that they should go after? If you could just pick one list.
I love the probate, pre-probate, inherited. That's my favorite list or group. I mean, they're similar, right? Because pre-probate becomes probate, or some of them, right? Some of them drop off, and then some of them drop off, and those ones that are inherited are kind of left. We have success with all three. And then Man, pre-foreclosures are phenomenal because that's the one list where people have to sell. They have to make a decision, right?
They
They're
have
either
to make
gonna,
it.
they have to make a decision. And so I think you have to be willing to deal with complete chaos. Like people calling you at 2 a.m, they may not respond for months and months. They may be willing to wait until like the last week. But if you're set up in such a way where you can deal with the chaos, there's a lot of money. I know guys that their whole business model is predicated on pre-foreclosures and they're really, really good at it. And their marketing spend is really, really low. And so, we've had success not focusing on it, but we're starting to focus more and more because we've just seen so many deals
Awesome.
that we're closing
Yeah.
because of, it's just a great list.
Yeah, the more motivation that they have, a seller has, the more money, the more opportunity you have to make money. And so Jeremy, what's your plan for 20? We're at the beginning of the year. What's your goal for 2024? Like you did 93 deals last year, which is fantastic, roughly, 8 deals per month. What's your goal for this year in terms of how many deals and revenue number?
So last year, I just had something inside of me that wanted to hit 100 deals. I didn't even care so much as what the revenue looks like. I know that's kind of out of whack because it's not how many deals you do, it's how much you keep, right? But this year, I want to do somewhere between 90 and 110 deals. I'm not as stuck on the number of deals, but we did a lot of tweaks last year as far as marketing, testing out new postcards, spending a lot more on things. And so we found out in 2023 a lot of information about what we feel like works well for us and doesn't. And so I know we overspent last year and I'm okay with that because, sometimes, I mean, if you're not testing, there's no way for you to figure out
Absolutely.
what works. And I know there's other people who have had success and you can follow them and that's great. But at the end of the day, your market is going to be a little bit different than everybody else's. And so we're constantly testing things. And so this year, I'd like to do over 3 million, but I'm also adding land acquisition as well. So we used to do land a few years back, and then we started to bring on a team this past year to kind of get the systems in place and really be ready for 2024. And so now that I want to be a huge part of our business. So I'd like to do 500 to 1 million. I know it's pretty broad, but we're buying rural vacant land. We're doing it nationwide, and we have a pretty good system right now. And so, I'm really, really excited about that, what that's going to mean for our business. And then we're also starting to dive into mobile home parks. So again, not to get caught up in shiny object syndrome. We're not really doing that. We're trying to figure out, okay, we've got our single family business really dialed in. So let's maintain that, maybe grow it a little bit, but let's figure out how to spend a little bit less on the marketing and generate more revenue per deal. So that's number one.
Right.
Number two is add the land piece. And then number three is, how do we get that long-term cash flow? And so we really have a couple of opportunities in some of our smaller outlying markets where mobile home parks in South Carolina are a great opportunity. So we're making offers on those, quite regularly. So I'm really excited about those two things.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, that sounds very exciting. So essentially, more or less doing the same number of deals as or within the same range as last year, but increasing your average profit per deal by about 40-50% to get to that number. Yeah, I think it's like quality over quantity. I think it makes I think sometimes people get too wrapped up into like the top line or just the vanity number of, oh, I want to do like 100 deals, 200 deals, 300 deals, but then they lose the profitability part of it. So it's great to see you be focused on the profitability over just like doing certain number of deals just for the sake of it and not even worrying about the profitability. It's fantastic, man. Yeah, good luck with that. Cool, man. I want to move on to the next segment of our podcast. So Jeremy, what do you do for fun? You said you have 3 kids, right?
I have 4 kids now.
4 now. How old are they? The oldest or the youngest one?
They are 10, 10, and 12, 12. So we've adopted 3.
Oh, cool.
And
It's
so
awesome.
it's been it's been a pretty wild ride, but I love hanging out with the kids and the family. We love a good board game. We like to do that a lot for fun. My kids are all involved in sports, so I feel like we're running all over the
Fantastic.
place for basketball and soccer and dance and all that. But me personally, I love exercising. I work out a lot, love to read. I'm a learner, so I watch a lot of podcasts. I'm always trying to figure out, hey, what's that edge, in the house business or in the marketing? How do I get that edge over my competition? So I'm always paying attention to what other people are doing. And I just love talking shop. I love real estate, any type of real estate. So
That's great, man. You said you love reading. Which book has had the biggest influence in your life? It could be a business book, it could be a personal book, or it could be one of each.
man, in 2023, I was going through a really tough time. Started dealing with some anxiety, started just dealing with some things in my life that I've never experienced before. Had some real struggles with my health. And so, man, at a recommendation of a friend, they said, hey, you got to read 10X is easier than 2X. And so I read that.
Dan
And
Sullivan.
Yeah, Dan Sullivan. I love Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, man, such a great organization, helps so many entrepreneurs. But yeah, read that. And literally it was like a light bulb. I started realizing, there's some things we do in the single family business, even on our team. And it's like, man, we're kind of overlapping, or we're doing duplicative work. Like, how do we empower our team? How do we have the people doing the right things and not overlapping, and really releasing some of our team members to do bigger and better things? And so that was huge. That was a game changer for me. And that was actually in my kind of my health journey. I was dealing with all sorts of health things. I ended up losing about 50 pounds,
Oh, wow.
and really started to focus on, hey, how do I get healthy? Like, I've got more time freedom. We've got the money freedom. The business is going really well, but I was struggling with life, man, and the anxiety and these other issues. I'm like, I don't even know where it came from, but I realized, man, I need to take care of my soul. I need to take care of my body, start, giving it the right fuel. So that was really a big priority. Starting in May, I came to this epiphany. And so I read that book, and the first day I read that, I'm like, okay, I'm all in. And so that was great for my business. It was great because I made little changes in my life. A lesson I learned is success loves speed, right? I've heard some gurus say this before, but I realized that that's an important thing for me. I need to keep moving. I need to keep moving fast. And then another one that was huge for me was movement begets more movement. So I gained all this weight because I stopped moving around. And I was struggling
Great.
with my energy, and I couldn't even stay up past 7:30 at night. This is going to sound crazy, but I couldn't stay awake. And my wife's like, hey, are you going to be present with the family? And so I started to just go for walks. And then I was meditating, and I was praying, and I was trying to do the things to, calm my soul, get my body moving, lose some weight. And, ultimately these things all kind of intersected, and I started doing these things at the same time. And I lost at one point, I'm trying to look at my number here because I track my weight every day now. I'm like very serious about doing this. I lost 36 pounds in 54 days.
Oh, wow.
That
That's some
changed everything for
serious.
me. I
Wow.
stopped drinking alcohol. I started doing intermittent fasting. And everything has really changed since then. And so I'm trying to maintain it, right? Because you go through the ups and downs. But
Absolutely,
all
man.
that to say, the answer to your question is 10X is easier than 2X. That was a game changer for me.
Incredible, man. Incredible. Isn't it amazing? We make, like, for you, it was just such a simple decision of reading that one book, how it just completely changed your life. That's incredible, man. Like, fantastic, fantastic story. Thank you for sharing. All right, I want you to give this question some thought. If you could spend a day with anyone, dead or alive, who would you want to spend the day with and why?
Oh man, can I use religious figures?
Yeah, of course.
So for me, it would be Jesus Christ. Because what's crazy, this is crazy, because regardless of what you think of him, he was able to connect people at a level that even today you could read something. I mean, you could read the Bible, you could read the Gospels, and you could say, whether you like it or hate it, you read that and you say, hey, this is just pure wisdom. There's something in here, like, this is not advice that you get from somewhere else, right? Forgiving your
Absolutely.
enemies or your neighbors, people that wrong you, praying for people. that have done things against you, praying for your enemies. Man, that's just crazy stuff. And so for me personally, he was able to connect people, and yet at the same time, he was able to create this division, right? And so the way he was able to do that, I'd love to be able to just ask some questions, or to be a fly on the wall if he could go back in time to see what really happened, because there's so many things that happen, but we're only given a glimmer of what actually happened. We don't get all the details. And so
the behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. So, and to impact the world even today. So yeah, that would be my person.
Absolutely, man. Great answer, man. All right, man. Final question. How can someone who's listening to this podcast get in touch with you?
You can call me, you can text me. I'll give you my number. Feel free. I try to answer within 24 hours. My personal cell, 615-670-8153. You can shoot me an email at jeremy@843cashoffer.com, or you can find me on Facebook. One of those three ways will get you in touch. I love talking shop. I love talking about all three things real estate, or even just, I'd love to hear about your journey wherever you're at. So I love real estate. I love talking shop.
Yeah, we'll put that in the podcast show notes. Dude, thank you so much, Jeremy. It's been an incredible interview. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and everything you've gone through in the last 7 years, and to all the incredible success you've had. Thank you so much.